It's early July and this is the first video in a new series I want to do of our Studio Diaries. All I want to do in these videos is just take you behind the scenes on what's going on in the Fabled Thread. You know, we're a small creative business and every week, every month, we are working on all sorts of different things, but also facing all sorts of different conundrums and challenges. And so I thought it'd be quite nice just to start recording a little bit of that as we go. It's the types of things I've already always put into my Instagram stories, but those disappear after 24 hours and it's not an overly digestible format, and therefore this way I can just record them every so often and summarise a load of things going on for you to watch whenever you want. So I'm a structured thinker and therefore I have thought about the last sort of 5 to 10 days and I feel like there's 5 topics I want to talk about. So first up is all about losing and regaining control. Those who follow us on Instagram will know my incredible right-hand woman, Georgina, who's been with the business from the moment we were in my old flat. She would be winding bobbins in the bedroom and I would be making kits on my kitchen table. She went on maternity leave at the end of May, and whilst we were super prepared for it, I then just threw a load of stuff at the team. So we had our once a year, we do a birthday sale, and this year that birthday sale went absolutely bananas. And then we followed it up with shipping out all our limited edition kits, then launching the botanicals, then our Schumacher collaboration. And it meant through June, for every single week, the poor team had to deal with something totally new, which whilst we stayed on top of everything, it meant that we really fell behind on keeping all our kits in stock. So if you go on the website right now, the website's really low on stock. And we are not one of those kinds of businesses that enjoys having things out of stock. I think if you are trying to work on a creative project or you've been working up to save towards something, if you go on the website and the design you want isn't there, it's just really disappointing. So we knew we had to get back in control of everything. Now, what I've learned is that we are incredibly lucky, number one, to have this amazing community, number two, to be based in central London, and 3, to have an amazingly nice work environment. Like, it's a lovely studio. So at the end of June, I put a shout out on Instagram to say, hey, is anyone around for a few weeks and wants to come freelance and help us? And within an hour, we had loads of people get in touch. And so over the last 3 weeks, we've had Anna, Joanne, Helena and Megan all in the studio helping us restock. And it's meant that whilst I'm sure no one wants to see a hank of wool or wind a bobbin again for the rest of their lives, we are so much better. And so this weekend we're going to restock everything, but also finally it just feels like for us, our small kind of permanent team, we finally just feel a little bit back in control of what we're doing. Next up is events. Over the last few weeks we had a couple of events. This week on Tuesday I taught a freestyle workshop at Charleston Farmhouse, which is the most beautiful place if you haven't been. It was the home of the Bloomsbury Group. It's where Vanessa Bell and Duncan Grant lived, and it is decoratively painted, but it's just a really creative environment. So I went there to teach freestyle embroidery. And the week before, I hosted a virtual How to Draw Badly event, which is basically a free event we put on every few months for studio members to sit together and do weird and wonderful drawing exercises to make you free up creatively. And one thing I found really exciting about this was my first ever virtual event I did was last November. And I found it a really overwhelming experience. If you've never hosted a virtual event, I don't think you realise quite how intimidating it is for the person presenting. You know, sitting and talking to a camera and all you can see is a participant number. You see numbers rising and falling. Or if you say, hey, has anyone got any questions, and no one answers, it's absolutely an environment where you question yourself, you doubt yourself. But when I watched back the very first recording I did after, I was so apologetic. Like the whole way through I would say, oh, I'm sorry, I hope you're finding this interesting, I'm sorry this is boring. And actually that can make the person watching it feel super uncomfortable because no one wants to sit there listening to someone who clearly feels really uncomfortable with doing it. So what was really exciting after that was, even though I found it really tough, I'd spoken to the team and they just said to me, just do it for 6 months and just keep doing them for 6 months. And if you really hate it at the end of 6 months, then, you know, you gave it a go. But don't judge it after one thing. And this one last week was our 6th month one. And I really enjoyed it. Like, it coincided with an England football match, so we had far fewer participants than had signed up. And people had to drop off as the workshop went on, but none of it bothered me. I felt like it was just fun. Even if there'd only been one person there, it's just fun to get to spend an evening with people, and slightly to get over the fact it's a virtual talk was really liberating. So what's really exciting is, for me personally, it just showed me that when you say you're going to do something, you have to commit to it for a period of time and trust that it will get better, or if it doesn't get better, at least you know you gave it a good go. And so that's part of what I'm going to do with the Studio Diaries series. Is this, again, is a very uncomfortable experience, but my hope is if I just commit to doing it for the next 3 months, and let's see where we go with it. So the third big thing that I've been working on is a really exciting new kind of creative collaboration. And I can't show you what it is, but what I can tell you is it's a totally different brief. And so, last month we launched our Schumacher collaboration cushions, and these were designs which I created in collaboration with Schumacher, and I've got an article on my journal all about how we came up with the designs, but also how difficult I found it working collaboratively as a creative with someone else. Most creatives are quite protective over their own aesthetic. The one thing that makes this a much easier collaboration is it's obviously textile, it's needlepoint, whereas the difficulty with my new brief is it is not a textile brief, it's an illustration brief, and I am not an illustrator. And so that whole thing is just incredibly intimidating from a technical perspective of just knowing how to do it, but secondly, it's an illustration brief where really experienced illustrators have gone before me. And so there's almost this direct comparison of, am I good enough compared to them? Obviously, I've been approached for a reason, and I have to believe that. But what I have been doing for the last 10 days is pretty much working tirelessly on my concept. And tomorrow is big pitch day, and that's where I'm going to share what I've created. The team here have been through everything, and everyone's very on board with it. But I guess, much like if this were a real diary, this is a lot of the anxiety that I would be writing about in my diary right now, would be stepping out of my creative comfort zone. So, number 4, in a slightly different way, is getting back in my creative comfort zone. And the other thing we've been doing over the last 5 to 10 days is having to work on our next launches. And whilst most sane companies out there run months and months in advance, we don't. And actually what I now need to do is design our kits for our next chunk of botanicals launches, our autumn flowers. We have Jesse, who's our photographer, coming on the 30th of August, so I basically just have to have kits designed and stitched by them, ready for him to photograph. So I've been spending the last few days trying to come up with some nice floral designs for autumn flowers, and what I have discovered is there's not many autumn flowers. So this is going to be a little bit of autumn, late summer, I think, but it's fun. It's fun to design the new pieces. And the other new one that we've started trying to work on here is we're working on our next limited edition. And I've got a video, I'll link to it, a video explaining limited editions, but the idea of it is you get to choose what becomes a limited edition. We will suggest a few different designs and you then choose. And so this weekend is big vote weekend, where for the next kind of week, people can vote what design they want to become a limited edition, and then throughout August, you have the option to get it. After August, it will never be made again. So that's quite fun. It's quite fun narrowing down the list. That embroidery there I finished just a week ago, and I feel like could go on the list, but let's see if anyone votes for it. So new designs is something we are always working on. And finally, the last thing is this. We are 2 weeks into having a YouTube channel, and the one thing that has been absorbing a lot of our time is obsessing over this whole additional marketing channel. Having a small business is really hard to market your business, and we're an incredibly small team. One of the reasons we don't have a microphone is because this is me on my own recording with my phone and a tripod, and what we're trying to do is just get something going, and if people seem to like it, and if we feel like we're getting engagement in it, then we can invest and we can go in for it more. But actually, recording these videos has taken up quite a lot of time over the last few weeks, but I have enjoyed it, I think. I think I'm enjoying it. I wish someone else was on the other side of there, so I actually was talking to someone, but much like the virtual talks, I'm sure it will get easier. So that's what we've been up to. Next week, we're preparing a special Summer of Sewing gift. And then, fingers crossed, I'll get full sign off on my creative experiment and I will be headlong into an illustration project. So that's what we're working on at the moment. And let me know what you think. Do you like this? Is this a good thing to do? I hope you enjoy Studio Diaries.